So before you went to heaven the last time, and Metatron gave you as a little girl when you were 4 years old.
Yeah, 4 years old. Yes, handed me this thing. I had no idea what to do with it. I didn't even know what or who Metatron was. I remember asking my mother after I came back and got out of hospital for this, from the first accident, saying, who's Metatron? She said, oh, I don't know, some archangel in the Bible. But my mum was a converted Catholic, and so she wasn't big on it. And that's fine, like Metatron wasn't really known, it wasn't really spoken about. In fact, I don't think until I started speaking publicly about Metatron in Australia, at least, he wasn't really like a prominent figure. He was occasionally noted, but he was more called Melchizedek.
Oh my goodness. I have been mixing them two up. Melchizedek
and Metatron. Yeah.
One and the same.
I am not entirely sure, but I'm not really into angels. It's kind of like an accidental thing that I work with angels. I'm not really into like the whole angelology stuff, because like everything, people in the New Age take it too far. Then they go, you're cherubs and, whatever. And I think, oh, yeah, please. And they conveniently disregard the Nephilim, which are the dark angels, which is just as valid and just as prominent as the angels.
You know what? So the dark angels are the dark little things that get attached to our...
They're dark big things. They're not entities. Yes. They're dark angels, like Archangel Michael and Raphael and Uriel.
Work for the dark side.
And they work for the dark side. Remember that there has to be an equal balance in this world. There has to be. So if there's good, there's also bad somewhere, and you're not going to escape that. You can mitigate it, you can work around it, but you're not going to escape it. It's life. It's life. So I really didn't know about Metatron. It's only just been as I've grown up and got older that I have learned more about Metatron. But if you think about it, I suppose there's a lot of people that would be surprised that I didn't learn as much, but what 4-year-old is going to go and research? They ask the priest, they ask the parents, and I do remember talking to the priest about it, like our parish priest. I think my mother said, go talk to Father, whoever it was, can't remember. And so I did, and I asked, and he didn't really give me much beyond biblical answers. And I do remember saying to him, which I have always thought was really funny, I said, so why do I call God Father? And he said, because God is the Father of us all. And I said, well, I don't think so. I have a perfectly good father of my own, because my dad was just simply amazing. I didn't need to have God as like dad. He wasn't going to tuck me in, read me stories, whatever. He was just God. But, I must have been a bit oppositional to the church, I think. Yeah. Because, to go on to another tack, there is no such thing as an entirely true religion. They're all one part of a great big picture, and you need to mix them all together with some good sensible editing to get to the truth. There's a lot of injury and harm in different religions and so forth, and if you look at it, what supreme spiritual being would want any living creature to be maimed or mutilated or abused or suffer and what supreme being would literally stand there and go, you don't call me by this name, so therefore we can chop off your head and whip off your hands and whatever, and all things equal, all things great. It just doesn't make sense, does it? No.
When you were in heaven, you didn't see God.
I did.
Can you describe that?
Well, God, the first thing to know about God is that God is not human. God is not in a human form. If God wants to speak to humans, and I imagine animals too, if God wants to speak to animals, why couldn't that essence do that? But they take the form that is comfortable and familiar. So they inhabit people if they want to speak to us. And thus you get the prophets, you get Moses and I don't know the names of all the prophets, Daniel, Samson, who hung out with whores. Yeah, interesting character. And Jesus, he looks like a human. And I guess that if he wanted to speak to animals, he would take an animal form. He wouldn't go there dressed as, what we perceive Jesus to be, to talk to a herd of elephants. Why do we limit God? And most religions choose to limit God. So, yes, I saw God when I was in heaven, but what he appeared, or what that appeared to me like, was a massive ball of energy above and beyond me. It was alive. You could see it was alive. There was just so much energy flowing in and flowing out, and there was a constant, unending stream of different beings going in to that energy and others coming out. And the way that it explained to me is that God is the all-seeing, all-knowing, vast energy. And if you want to let go of all the trauma that you've had in different lives coming up to this point, you can rejoin that God source. But that will take everything from you that you have experienced, and you will come back to the basic level, and you basically start again, as it were. But it will start you out in a pain-free and very naive and innocent version. And everybody, regardless of whether we perceive them to be good or evil, goes there, which, to be honest, sort of pissed me off a bit. I thought, how come I can be nice and not litter and not step on, like lizards running across the footpath, and not kill snakes and not abuse people, and if I get to heaven, I'm given the same chance as the person who has done these hideous crimes? And the way that was explained to me, that to me made sense, is that if there is nothing on earth for us to test our strength on, we don't actually go strong. We don't grow strong. If there's no temptation, how can you ever claim to be resistant to temptation? Right? And if you get angry, and which human and animal doesn't get angry? Even the earth gets angry. Like, which living being doesn't experience anger? The question is, what do you do with that anger? Are you going to pick up that, heavy vase, or grab that knife or that gun and hurt, potentially kill another human being or another living being without that temptation, like you've got a choice. Every time you get angry, you've got this choice. You can pick up this log of wood and club this other being over the head and kill them. Or you can choose to be stronger and forgo that temptation. Right? That's learning, isn't it? That is growth. And it's the same when you go into a gym. If you were to go into the gym and the only weights they had were the bars to hold the weights. So you could lie there all day doing push-ups, press-ups, all day, and your muscles basically would not develop at all. And then we go and have a weightlifting contest and you're all going, oh, I can pick up the bar too easy. Where are you ever going to get the Arnold Schwarzeneggers from? Where? If there isn't weight there to test yourself against. So you walk down the road and you see a diamond ring on the road and you think to yourself, I could keep this, pawn this, take money. Or I can hand this in to the police and hopefully the owner will be found. There's a temptation and you are testing your moral resilience and strength. You take the ring to the police station and that part of you grows. Or you keep it and you learn you can get away with it and that part of you grows. So that saying like, which wolf are you feeding? It's exactly the same thing. Which wolf are you feeding?
So what's forbidden when it comes to heavens?
Well, when I was younger, before the last near-death experience, I thought that there were obvious things that were forbidden, and humanly and even on a broad spiritual thing, things are forbidden. We are told, for instance, that we should not, in anger or revenge, take another life. And I put those constraints on it because sometimes taking somebody's life is actually appropriate. Like if they're in pain, if their arm's been chopped off and you've got no way to save them, and are they going to bleed out slowly or however, or are you going to give them a quick death? They're forbidden. But if we never had sin, nobody ever grows. And it depends, like the really obvious one, the one that has always, and I don't think will ever cease to upset me, is say pedophilia or zoophilia, which is the same thing with animals. And it's never been hinted to me or intimated to me that these are okay. But I don't see, even talking about it is hard. Way that it was explained to me is that, for instance, homosexuality is not a sin because you have two rational, consenting minds agreeing to an act, whether it be of love or just lust. It's an act, and they are agreeing. And when it comes to children and when it comes to animals, regardless of what people say, you do not have two rational, equal, consenting people. No? And that is where it has been, I suppose, given to me as the level of sin is when you cause harm without an ability to defend themselves or to choose no. Don't do that. Does that make sense? It's even with taking, like thieving things, for instance. If there was a young person, or even a person that they don't have to be young, who was like wandering around near where I was, and they were starving and they had nowhere to sleep, and maybe there's holes in their shoes, whatever situation, and they saw my purse sticking out of my bag and they stole it, I would be pretty upset. But once I found out the circumstances, my heart would stop being upset and it would be actually more distressed that I hadn't seen this person in need and said, here, let me help you, right? And the thievery, the theft, would become irrelevant, right? Because they had a need and it was like a survival need. And I know, for instance, if I'm walking down the road wherever I am and I see somebody who is begging, asking for money or food or whatever, I will find something to give them. And if I'm worried that they're going to take money I give them for drugs or whatever, and look, it's their business, but I want them to eat rather than shoot up, I will go into the nearest shop and I'll buy them a meal and a drink, and I'll give that to them. Say, here's something to eat. I might not be able to teach them to fish, but I can certainly feed them today. See, and so everything seems to have circumstances or mitigating circumstances, I should say, but they also say in the commandments that thou shalt not commit adultery. And that I do happen to agree with, because you have made a promise to another person that you won't be unfaithful. And the very, very, very first person that you should tell that you intend to be unfaithful to, if you are going to be, is the person whose fidelity you are going to harm. Let them be the first person, not the last person to find out. If you are really going to be unfaithful, have the courage to say to your partner, I've met somebody and I really want to have sex with them.
Is there such a thing as karma?